Hello, and welcome back to the show. I'm Joe, your resident financial analyst, here to help you make sense of the complex forces shaping our global economy.
And I'm Jane. I'm here to ask the questions we're all thinking about and to figure out what all this news actually means for our wallets.
It's great to have you with us. Before we dive into today's icy topic, I want to take a quick moment to invite our listeners to subscribe to the channel. We're dedicated to bringing you exciting, high-level financial news in a calm, soothing podcast format. If you want to stay ahead of the curve without the stress, hit that subscribe button.
Yes, please do. We love having you here. Now, Joe, today we are talking about Greenland. I have to be honest, when I saw the topic, I thought about ice, maybe some fishing, and that time a few years ago when there was talk about the U.S. buying it. Is that still a thing?
It is absolutely still a thing, Jane. And actually, it's becoming much more than just a political headline. We need to stop thinking of Greenland as just a remote, icy island and start thinking of it as a potential trillion-dollar asset class. It's sitting at the intersection of three major global themes: great power geopolitics, the green energy transition, and the effects of climate change.
A trillion-dollar asset class? That sounds intense. I remember the headlines about President Trump wanting to buy Greenland and the Danish Prime Minister calling it absurd. Has that rhetoric calmed down, or is it heating up again?
It's definitely heating up, pun intended. While the idea of a direct purchase, like the Louisiana Purchase, might be diplomatically tricky in the 21st century, the strategic intent behind it is very real. Recent reports suggest the U.S. administration is looking at a range of options to secure influence there. And it's not just Trump. Back in 1946, President Harry Truman actually offered Denmark $100 million in gold bars for Greenland. So this American interest is a long-standing strategic consistency, not just a modern whim.
Wow, I had no idea Truman tried to buy it too. Why are we so obsessed with this island? Is it just because it's big and close to us?
That's part of it, but it's really about location, location, location. In military terms, we talk about the GIUK Gap. That stands for Greenland, Iceland, and the United Kingdom. It's a naval choke point in the North Atlantic. If you control Greenland, you effectively control the gateway between the Arctic and the Atlantic Oceans.
So it's like a gatekeeper for the ocean?
Exactly. During the Cold War, this was crucial for tracking Soviet submarines. Today, with Russia revitalizing its northern fleet and China declaring itself a near-Arctic state, despite being nowhere near the Arctic, that location is more valuable than ever. The U.S. already has the Pacific Space Base there, which is critical for missile warnings. But now the concern is that if we don't solidify our footing, our adversaries will.
Okay, so that covers the military side. We need it to keep an eye on Russia and China. But you mentioned a $1 trillion opportunity. Are we talking about charging rent for bases, or is there something in the ground?
There is something massive in the ground, Jane. Greenland is geological gold mine, or rather a rare earth mine. As the ice melts due to climate change, it is exposing rock formations that have been hidden for millennia. These rocks are packed with critical minerals: neodymium, dysprosium, terbium. These aren't just fancy names, they are the vitamins of modern industry.
Vitamins of industry. I like that. So these are the things we need for, what, phones, cars?
Everything high-tech. Electric vehicle motors, wind turbines, fighter jets, guidance systems for missiles. Currently, China controls roughly 60% of the mining and nearly 90% of the processing of these rare earth elements globally. That is a massive vulnerability for the US and Europe. If China decided to turn off the top, our production of EVs and defense tech would grind to a halt.
That sounds scary. So Greenland is like our backup plan? A way to break up that monopoly?
Precisely. A 2023 survey showed that 25 of the 34 minerals classified as critical raw materials by the European Commission are found in Greenland. The potential value of the rare earth oxides alone in just one project, the Quanafeld project, is estimated to be astronomical. We are talking about enough reserves to supply the Western world for decades.
So why aren't we digging there already? If it's worth so much and we need it so badly, why isn't it full of mines?
That's the complex part. It's incredibly difficult terrain. It's the Arctic. There are no roads between towns in Greenland. You have to fly or take a boat. Building a mine there requires massive infrastructure investment. Plus, there are environmental concerns. The local population is understandably worried about pollution, especially uranium, which is often found alongside these rare earths. In fact, a couple of years ago, the Greenland government actually banned uranium mining, which stalled that Quantifeld project I mentioned, because uranium was a byproduct.
Ah, so it's political and logistical. But when there's $1 trillion on the table, usually people find a way to overcome those hurdles. Are there any big players trying to solve this?
There are indeed, and this is where the story gets really futuristic. Have you heard of KoBold metals?
The name sounds familiar. Isn't that the one with the billionaires? That's the one. KoBold Metals is a mineral exploration company backed by Breakthrough Energy Ventures. That's a fund supported by Bill Gates, Jeff Bezos, Michael Bloomberg, and others. They are using artificial intelligence to hunt for these critical minerals.
Wait, AI mining? How does that work? Did they just ask ChatGPT where the gold is?
Not exactly, though that would be convenient. Think of it like Google Maps for the Earth's crust. They take massive amounts of data, satellite imagery, magnetic surveys, historical drilling data, geological maps, and feed it into machine learning algorithms. The AI looks for patterns that human geologists might miss. It predicts where the ore bodies are likely to be located deep underground.
That is wild. So instead of just randomly drilling holes, they have a treasure map.
Exactly. They are focusing on the Disco Nuswak project on Greenland's west coast. They are partnering with a company called Blue Jay Mining. They are looking specifically for nickel, copper, cobalt, and platinum. These are the metals you need for batteries. KoBold's CEO has said that fully electrifying the global economy is our generation's greatest challenge, and to do that, we need to find these materials. They believe Greenland could be a new major district for these metals, similar to the Norilsk region in Russia, which is currently the world's largest supplier of nickel.
And since we probably don't want to rely on Russia for nickel right now, Greenland becomes the friendly alternative.
Spot on. It's about friendshoring, sourcing materials from stable allied jurisdictions. Greenland, being part of the Kingdom of Denmark, is a NATO ally. It's politically stable, unlike many other regions where these minerals are found.
This makes so much sense now. It's not just Trump wanting to put his name on a hotel in Nuuk. It's about securing the supply chain for the entire future of technology.
Correct. And there's another layer to this, the climate paradox I mentioned earlier. As the planet warms, the ice sheet in Greenland is melting. This is tragically raising sea levels, which is bad for global coastal cities. But ironically, it's making Greenland itself more accessible.
Right, the ice melts so the ships can get closer?
Yes, shipping routes. We are looking at the potential opening of the Northwest Passage for longer periods of the year. This could drastically cut shipping times between Asia and Europe, or the east coast of the US, bypassing the Suez Canal or Panama Canal. It's not commercially viable year-round yet, but as a long-term trend, control over these Arctic routes is going to be incredibly valuable.
So Greenland could become like a new Singapore? A major shipping hub?
Maybe not quite a bustling metropolis like Singapore anytime soon. The weather is still brutal. But a strategic maritime hub? Absolutely. The U.S. Coast Guard and Navy are already increasing their presence in the Arctic to ensure freedom of navigation there.
Okay, Joe, this is all fascinating, but let's bring it back to the market. I'm a regular investor. I can't go out and stake a claim on a glacier. How does this affect the U.S. stock market? Are there companies I should be watching?
That is the $1 million or $1 trillion question. Direct investment is tricky because many of the players are private, like KoBold, or small cap explorers. However, there are public companies involved. I mentioned Blue Jay Mining, which is listed in London but has that joint venture with KoBold. Then there are companies like Critical Metals Corp and others that are looking to develop assets in the region.
Critical Metals Corp. I'll have to look that one up. What about the big guys?
The bigger play here is actually in the defense and green energy sectors. If the U.S. secures a reliable supply chain of rare earths from Greenland, it benefits companies like Lockheed Martin or Raytheon, who need these materials for guidance systems. It benefits Tesla and General Motors, who need nickel and cobalt for batteries. It reduces their supply chain risk. So while you might not invest in a Greenland stock directly, you are looking at the de-risking of the entire U.S. tech and defense industrial base.
That's a really smart way to look at it. It's an infrastructure play. If the supply chain gets safer, the big American manufacturers get stronger.
Exactly. Also, keep an eye on the geopolitical tensions. If we see headlines about China trying to invest in Greenland infrastructure, like building airports or ports, that usually triggers a counter-reaction from the US. In the past, the US actually intervened to stop a Chinese company from upgrading airports in Greenland, offering to fund it themselves or through Denmark instead. These soft power bottles are signals of where the money is flowing.
It's like a game of geopolitical chess. But what about the risks? You mentioned environmental bans. Could the Greenlandic people just say no thanks to all of this?
That is the single biggest risk. Greenland has a home rule government. They are autonomous in managing their natural resources. In 2021, a left-wing party came to power specifically on a platform of opposing the Kvanefjeld mine because of the uranium issue. They essentially blocked it. So political risk is high. Investors have to watch the local elections in GIUK just as closely as the ones in Washington.
That's wild to think about. A local election in a town of 18,000 people, GIUK, could decide the fate of global EV production?
It really highlights how interconnected our world is. And it's not just about the mining bans. It's about the desire for independence. Many in Greenland want full independence from Denmark. To do that, they need an economy. Right now, they rely heavily on subsidies from Denmark. Mining is seen by many as the only viable path to economic self-sufficiency. So there is this internal tension. Protect the pristine environment or mine the resources to gain political freedom.
That's a tough choice. It adds a really human element to all this high-level strategy.
It does. And for the US, the strategy is to be the partner of choice. If Greenland is going to develop, Washington wants to make sure it's American or allied capital doing the developing, not Chinese capital. That's why we are seeing more diplomatic visits, more talk of investment packages, and yes, the occasional headline about buying the island, which is really just a blunt way of expressing this strategic necessity.
So, Joe, if you had to summarize the Greenland trade for the next 5 to 10 years, what is it?
The Greenland trade is a long volatility play on geopolitics and climate change. It's a bet that the Arctic will become a central theater of economic activity. I would look for, 1, continued exploration success by companies like KoBold. If they find a massive deposit, it validates the whole region. 2, increased U.S. government spending on Arctic infrastructure, icebreakers, ports, communications. And 3, the specific critical mineral miners that can navigate the environmental regulations. It's not a get-rich-quick scheme. It's a decade-long industrial shift.
And for the average person, it's a sign that the green energy transition is getting physical. It's not just ideas. It's about digging up rocks in the frozen north.
Absolutely. It grounds the digital and green economy in reality. We need copper, we need nickel, we need rare earths. They have to come from somewhere. Greenland is one of the last great untapped frontiers.
Well, I certainly won't look at a map of the Arctic the same way again. It's not just empty white space, it's a game board.
A very expensive, high-stakes game board, and we will be watching it closely. That brings us to the end of today's deep dive. We hope this gave you a clearer picture of why Greenland is dominating the financial and political headlines.
Thanks for breaking it down, Joe. It's always fascinating to see how these remote places affect our daily lives.
My pleasure, Jane. And to our listeners, thank you for spending this time with us. If you found this analysis helpful, please remember to subscribe. We have many more deep dives coming up on the hidden drivers of the global economy. Until next time, stay curious and keep learning.
Bye, everyone.